This game is rated M for mature.
Hello everybody. Thank God this is the last time I have to do this. I don't have to keep talking about how I don't have anything else to put in the segment anymore. It's Tea Party Cthulhu here, and welcome back to more Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. In the last episode, we looked at a bunch of stuff that was in the game that we didn't see because we couldn't see it because it wasn't in the game. I know, it makes a whole lot of sense when I'm saying it like this, but if you watch the episode, you know what I'm talking about. Well, this is the last of the bonus episodes. This is going to be all the stuff that we didn't see in the game because it wasn't in the game, not because it was in the game originally. Basically what I'm saying is, this is all the cut content, unused beta-y stuff, and also random other little things that I wanted to mention before we finish this. First, we'll start off with something extremely small and minor just because I can say it. Amazingly enough for a PC game, we actually have regional differences with this game. In the European releases of this game, about a second was cut from the intro where the sheriff beheads your sire due to censorship laws, and this is the only regional difference in this entire game. You see, this happens with some other games. I know, like, Resident Evil 4, I want to say one of the versions, like, if you get beheaded by the chainsaw, they actually show it, but not all of them. And speaking of localization, and specifically speaking of European releases, Bloodlines was also localized into French and German, no dub, just text. And, well, French and German are not languages that I'm too familiar with, so I don't know how good or bad they are, but the fact that it even exists is actually pretty impressive considering how rocky the development of this game is. Fan localizations do exist in Italian, Spanish, and Russian. I'll put links to all those in the description along, the description's gonna be one huge link farm this whole time. You're gonna, if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're gonna love it. Now, speaking of other version differences, there's a whole lot of versions of this game. By a whole lot, I mean 3. There are 3 officially released versions of this game. There is the original retail version, the GOG release, and Steam release. I'll put a link to Steam and GOG pages in the description, of course. I guess I can recommend the Steam release. That's what I've been using for this entire playthrough, actually. Before this, I didn't actually play the Steam release, and my first time playing the Steam release was for this series, so I would say all the playtime from it was on the Steam release, but if you launch the game through the mod launcher, it actually doesn't keep track of your playtime, so it says my current playtime is like 50 hours, it's probably closer to like 100 for the series. The Steam release, well, it was almost always on sale for $5, but now that Bloodlines 2 has been announced, it's not really the case anymore. The original Retails version DRM does not work on Windows 10, like a whole lot of old PC games DRM. The game is basically unplayable that way. The DRM is disabled by default on Windows Vista 7, 8, and 8.1, so if you have those and a retail copy of this game for whatever reason, you're good. If for some ungodly reason you actually own a retail copy of this game now, 1, I'm jealous because I'd love to own it, and 2, why? I will put instructions on how to get the game's DRM to work on those versions in the description. Pretty much all my info for this is coming from PC Gaming Wiki. They have great instructions for any PC game trying to fix a lot of issues. Highly recommend them, they're really awesome. I've even contributed something to the wiki for this game for them. The GOG version, specifically, I'm going to talk about it now. It comes with the unofficial patch pre-installed. I don't have this release, so I don't know which version it actually comes with, but you can update freely anyway. Again, I'll put a link to the unofficial patch's homepage in the description, and the GOG page will be there as well. The only other major differences between the Steam and GOG release is that the GOG release actually supports cloud saving, which this game is not compatible with Steam Cloud, which is very weird because it's a Source Engine game. Now, speaking of various improvements with the unofficial patch, this is actually not an unofficial patch thing, but something you just do anyway. Sweet FX and ENB series, anybody who is familiar with PC gaming probably knows these, especially if you tried to mod something like, say, Skyrim. Those support this game, which should give you a noticeable improvement in the graphical department. There's also a huge amount of fan-made graphical improvement mods. This game actually has a huge modding scene outside the unofficial patch. Well, I guess not really huge, but more than you would expect. I will link the ModDB page for this game. It features a lot of different mods, from very slight UI stuff to complete overhaul mods, like, say, the Clan Quest mod, which is actually a little fun fact about the planning of the series. That's how I plan to do this series in its early planning stages. I was going to use Clan Quest mod. It has Final Nights, Camarilla Edition. A lot of people recommend these, maybe if you're doing a repeat playthrough. I recommend going vanilla originally, or unofficial patch originally. If you want a very different experience of Bloodlines, this is your go-to option. Along with this, something else incredibly minor, random technical nerd babble that only I would care about. People who watch the series, and if you didn't, well, one, why you're watching this, and two, I guess I can't blame you, would know that I played without the unofficial patch, but I still used the widescreen resolution. By default, the game only supports 4:3 because it came out in 2004. But using a resolution patcher, along with some simple fixes, due to this being a source game, you can actually display the game in 16:9, even without the unofficial patch. The unofficial patch, of course, includes these changes by default. Installing the unofficial patch will fix this without using it. Okay, how am I gonna word this? You can install the unofficial patch, but don't launch it, and it will still fix this due to it having some universal engine changes. Universal engine changes for this is actually pretty important, because you'll probably notice a bug if you're playing vanilla. This actually happened to me, I believe, after episode 14 when I was getting back into the series, and it actually delayed me recording it by like a week or something. But I posted a fix on PC Gaming Wiki. If you just install the unofficial patch, it has a bunch of engine changes, and it will fix random bugs in this game even if you don't launch it. Highly recommend doing that. Now, before we get into cut content, I'm sure hoping as I'm saying this that I actually recorded this. I think I did. You know what, actually? I'm gonna look through my project folder right now, and let's see if I did it. I did not record this, oh well. Well, near future me, as in future me in like 5 minutes after recording this, go get these. I'm going to show one thing that extremely minor I forgot to show in game that I had. You can lockpick your way to Tung's little hideout in the gasoline tanker thing. I don't even know what it's supposed to be. You can actually lockpick your way there early and stoop on his PC beforehand. I didn't know this. I'm going to show what it looks like right now. So, you know, if you have really high lockpicking, why not? I don't know why you would that early in the game, but you could. Now, I'd like to give a huge thanks to the cutting room floor. I'm not even able to talk after this long. I've been recording episodes of this for like almost 4 hours right now. As I said, the end of bonus 2. These were recorded all on the same day, back to back. I'd like to thank the cutting room floor for most of all of this information. Cutting room floor is a wiki that's dedicated to unused and cut content, beta content in games, aka content that was left on the cutting room floor, hence the name. They had pretty much all this information. I will of course link to their page for this game in the description, because now we're going to get into cut and unused beta content stuff. Now, first we're going to start with disciplines. There's a whole bunch of unused disciplines that you may have actually seen some of them in the last bonus episode because it was using the unofficial patch. We have Blood Heal, which increases your health regen rate. I definitely remember seeing this one when I was running through last episode. This is restored by the unofficial patch, as I just said. It's pretty simple, increases health regen rate. We have Blood Theft, which is an alternative to Blood Salvo, which is Thaumaturgy level 4 discipline for Tremere. This is also restored by the unofficial patch. Unofficial patch, as you saw in the last episode, will actually change around some disciplines like this, replace them with some stuff. Why? I don't know, maybe it's just because they were unused content. We have Voice of Bedlam, which is an alternative to Bedlam, which is the Demontation level 5 discipline. This is also restored by the unofficial patch. Are you noticing a trend here? And then we have Command and Sleep, which are alternatives to Trance, which is Dominate level 1 discipline. This is also restored by the unofficial patch. Next we have some skills. We have the Occult skill. This is required to use Occult Power-Ups. The only remnants left in the game's data actually are messages upon skill failure. That's all you have left there. This is replaced in the unofficial patch by a different skill named Academics, which I believe is required to use the Occult Power-Ups there. We have Animal Ken, which is completely unused. If we were to guess, it's probably going to affect the behavior of animals towards the player. Why this would have been important, I don't know. So I don't think there's any point in the entire game where this would have mattered, because I doubt it'll help us that much with werewolves. And we have Athletics, which probably would have increased running speed and jumping feet. So it's kind of like Oblivion with the Acrobatics skill. It's probably not like Oblivion where you just spam jump all the time to raise it though. This goes completely unused in the game. Next we have some unused feats. We have jumping, unused, pretty self-explanatory. I doubt that I have to even mention this. Throwing, of course, probably would have affected the accuracy of thrown weapons. There's not really, I don't even think there's any in the game, so again, unused, not very useful. And Animal Friendship probably would have been connected to that Animal Ken skill that I mentioned earlier. Again, completely unused. Don't see any point in the game for it at all. I mentioned this in the original episode, but histories also went unused in the main game, as I showed there. This determines your background of the fledgling, kind of gives them a little backstory, and affects their starting stats. You can either use console commands, like I showed in the episode to do, I'll also flash on screen what they are right now, or the unofficial patch, which actually changes a few of the histories as well. Now, user interface, UI, two very lovely letters that if you're a web developer like me, you really hate. A beta, I don't know why I said beta. A beta version of this game's UI appears in the Santa Monica Beach House area and on the Ground Zero Internet Cafe in Hollywood. I think I actually mentioned this when we got to Ground Zero. I don't think I mentioned this in the Beach House. One of the TVs in the Beach House shows an early build of this game featuring the early UI, and honestly, I'm pretty happy that it got changed considering how it looks. Now there's also unused levels. We saw last episode the public library. This is restored by the unofficial patch, of course, for the Night at the Library quest. There is the Holobrook Atrium, which is hinted at by some in-game info and is recreated in the unofficial patch as well. We have Malkavian Maze. I don't even know what the hell this is, but it's apparently featured in beta screenshots, and it was also recreated in the unofficial patch. We have Warren's Shortcut. I'm guessing this is a shortcut to the Warrens, which, god, that would have been nice with how many times you have to run back there and how long it takes. This was hinted at in some beta screenshots, and it was apparently recreated in the unofficial patch. Again, we also saw in the last episode Santa Monica Smoke Shop and the Coffee Shop. This was shown on the bus stop maps in the vanilla game, but it went unused. These are recreated in the unofficial patch. Maybe they were just there for flavor originally. Now we have some unused items. First, we're going to go into some ranged weapons. We have the Dragon's Breath, which is a sawn-off shotgun with incendiary rounds. This is restored in the unofficial patch. Hey, again, are you noticing a pattern here? Most of this stuff is restored in the unofficial patch. We have Swat Sniper Rifle, which is used against the player by Grunfeld Bach. I believe, yeah, we saw that in the vanilla game. He uses the same weapon, but it's restored by the unofficial patch. I'm going to guess that he drops it in that patch. We have the Pyro Crossbow, which is used by Ming Zhao's guards against the player. I don't think they actually ever attacked us. Well, okay, wait, no, they did the ones... yeah, the ones in the lower basement attacked us with them. These are restored by the unofficial patch. I'm gonna guess that they dropped them. We have the LAW rocket launcher. The only remnant of this even existing in-game is an inventory icon. This is restored by another mod called the Arsenal mod, which adds a whole bunch of weapons. And we have the stake launcher. Again, only an inventory icon is present for this. Most likely was replaced by the crossbow in development. We have melee weapons now. As I showed off last episode, the Sheriff's Sword. This is restored by the unofficial patch. This might have been in the game by default. I didn't actually check without the unofficial patch. And honestly, I don't want to boot up this game for a very long time after this series, because god, it has been a lot of work. But you saw it last episode. We didn't actually use it, so I don't know the stats of it or anything. But it is restored by the unofficial patch anyway. That's what they tell me, so I'm going to assume that it's correct. We have the Tiger's Claws, which are used by the Claw brother of the Chang brothers against the player. It says it's restored by the unofficial patch, so maybe he drops it too. I don't know where else we would get it from. Maybe from Sang's Thermal Remedies or something. We have the Shin Gunto Sword. I mentioned this like 3 times in the series. This is used by Ming Zhao's guards, as well as the Katheyan in the Hunted Hunter. There are a few ways to get this in the unofficial patch. The Katheyan actually drops it in the Hunted Hunter. And we also saw last episode, Night at the Library quest, the La Sombra guy, he drops it as well. We have the Broadsword, which is a medieval sword. This went unused in the game. This was dropped at the start of the fight in Night at the Library from the last episode. We saw, I don't know what happened to it. I couldn't pick it up because my inventory was full, but nonetheless it was there. And we have the stake as a weapon. This weapon was actually changed to a quest item instead in the unofficial patch, which I mentioned earlier in the series when we were dealing with the Thin Bloods. I'll probably mention it again this episode though. Now for thrown weapons, now that I'm reading this, I just realized this might have actually been a use for the throw unused feat that we heard about earlier. We have Frag Grenades. These are used against the player by Grunfeld Bach, restored by the unofficial patch. I think him using Frag Grenades is actually unofficial patch only, because I don't remember him using them at all against us. And we have the Throwing Star. This is used as a quest item instead. This is used as part of poster session to get... I don't remember whose poster, but it's one of the posters. We have Occult Power-Ups, which is Occult Wits, Charisma, Security, and Obfuscate Power-Ups. These are all restored by the unofficial patch as well. And a bunch of miscellaneous items. We have a nameplate. I have no freaking clue where this one would be used at all. We have Chewing Gum, which is ended up using in the Daydream Believer unofficial patch. And Copper will buy it for $100. Copper the Thin Blood, use it. You pull the prank on him where he's like, oh, do this to become not a vampire anymore. We have the Wooden Pool Toy, which I didn't show last episode because I didn't show most of poster session. This is, if you look in the safe in Metalhead Industries, this is the item that's there instead in the unofficial patch. Using this in poster session will get you Damsel's poster. We have the Vacuum Tubes box. We saw this last episode. This is used as part of the library to get to the main elevator. We have the Charity Money box, which is used in Slasher Piece. You gain $250 and humanity loss for taking the money from it, unless you ask Jeanette what the money was actually for. And we have the Odious Chalice. Official will give you this item once you obtain the fetish statue during Occultist Personality. And there is a squashed Odious Chalice behind the last lab at the Foo Syndicate during Come Into My Parlor. So this is, I'm sure you were listening to this thing being like, wait, TPC, how this unused? We heard about the Odious Chalice like a billion years ago. Well, there's the other random one. And we have the library card, which is, we saw last episode during the night at the library. Now, here's going to be a huge laundry list of all of the quest differences. Most of all were restored by the unofficial patch. We have missing data. We saw this earlier in that horrific, I was going to say horrific horror show of an episode, but that's kind of stupid sounding, where we had to retrieve the CD for Tongue. This is only open to Nosferatu unless you're using the unofficial patch. We have replanting a lily. As I showed earlier, I think I showed one of the options for this, but not all of them. Danielle is not the only NPC that is usable in this quest anymore. She's the girl in the club. You can also use Stanley Gimbal while doing a bounty for the hunter, as well as Patty during Attention Whore. I don't know if this completes a bounty for the hunter as well, but I couldn't find any information about this. But it's kind of a clever way to deal with this. Send the serial killer to get his blood drained for all of eternity. The Hunted Hunter. Nox will actually tell you the entire story about the Cathayan and Bertram if you have an inspection of 3, enough social points, or if you're Malkavian. Thin Blood. You can give Lily back her belongings at the end of the quest for a humanity gain in the unofficial patch. More fun with Pestilence, specifically if you're going the route where you're going to go take care of Jezebel Locke. If you go to the room behind the receptionist, you can print a spare keycard for her room at the desk. And with the unofficial patch, at least this is what I'm told from my sources, I'm pretty sure I checked this out and I couldn't confirm it, you have to get the name of her suite from the PC to print it in the first place, which, I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. B-rated Rider. Allowing Julius to flee LA now gives you 1 experience point instead of 0. I know I was real mean in the series and I actually killed him instead. You Only Die Once a Night and Pimpin' for Romero. Now in the unofficial patch, these are not exclusive quests. You can do Pimpin' for Romero alongside You Only Die Once a Night. So actually, without the unofficial patch, it is impossible to do every single quest in this game because these 2 are exclusive. So after completing You Only Die Once a Night, you can talk to Romero and he will offer this quest anyway. Gargoyle Removal Service. If you tell Isaac that Strauss is the Gargoyle's creator, you will now get a Masquerade redemption, but the Chantry will indefinitely close as a haven. If Isaac is not told about Strauss, Strauss will give the player the Fey Charm. Model Citizen. I am told about this from my sources, I could not confirm it. If you take Amalia's reward for Model Citizen, you get a humanity loss with the unofficial patch. If you're not running it, I believe you don't get one, actually. Poster session, I feel like I've mentioned this way too many times in my life now. You can now get posters of Emalia, Tawny Sessions, Sweet Girl, and Another Girl. Bad Luck Farmer. If Shu is killed, you will also receive the Antique Locket now. The Hitman Impasse. You now gain $1,000 instead of an awkward $960 with the unofficial patch. As well, the exploit that I mentioned that results in the player receiving both the 6 experience and the $1,000 was fixed in both versions of the unofficial patch. Bad Blood. You can now deal with the thugs in the diner without resorting to combat, either with Persuasion 4, Intimidate 3, or Demontation 1 plus a blood point. Sibling Rivalry. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the episode because this is a massive headache. The fledgling's relationship with Jeanette and Therese, not Jeanette and Therese, it no longer needs to be at least 4 and equal to each other. They only have to be at least 4 now to get the wonderful little coexistence ending that I dedicate the entire episodes to. As well, quests that were only marked in the quest log in the unofficial patch, but I did actually show all of them. Dirty Dishes, Night at the Library, Drug Trip, and Daydream Believer. Which, Daydream Believer... Oh, that's where you save Heather. I believe that's not actually marked as a quest unless you do that. Now, time for the most miscellaneous of miscellaneous things. Again, gonna mention this because I mentioned it before, about Heather. Without the unofficial patch, the only way to save Heather from a grim fate is to release her from the Blood Bond, as I did in the series. Otherwise, after Society for the Preservation of Professors, she will get kidnapped, and during Hell at the Holobrook Hotel, she will be killed. With the unofficial patch, she can be told to stay indoors and out of sight, which will keep her safe, and she will survive the events of the game. However, you will not be able to receive her final gift of body armor if you tell her to stay inside. With the unofficial patch, there is a workaround. You can buy it from Mercurio during Out for Blood. As well, very last thing, because this is kind of different from the rest. Multiplayer. This game was actually originally planned to feature multiplayer, which... I don't know, given this game's combat, I can imagine it would be quite unbalanced. Bruja like me would probably be broken because of celerity. This was obviously scrapped due to the rocky development this game had. Supposedly, it was planned to come in a later patch, but of course Troika went bankrupt before they could do anything with it. There is plenty of multiplayer code that is still left in the game. There's like a few console commands you can see about it, and probably other things, I don't know. There are many multiplayer source commands that can still be seen in the console, as I mentioned. Now, some mods have actually restored some of the multiplayer behavior. Even if I could show this like I was playing with those mods, I don't have anybody to play those with. Who knows, maybe that'll be a super secret extra martial art Mambo Foxtrot bonus episode later. Way later down the line if I have anybody to show that with. But for right now, I have nothing that I can show it with. And that's it. That's the end of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, all the bonus episodes included. I honestly still can't believe this is even happening. Like, when I started this so long ago and it had to go through a whole bunch of rocky development, but, you know, it had a nice ending. I mean, I say that, I'm sure people will disagree with me going with the Camarilla ending at the end of the game, but I mean more in a meta sense, a nice ending. I'm going to leave you with a montage of me trying to fit a severed head through a basketball hoop and the wonderful sound that entrails it if you actually do this. I'm sure it'll be quite funny. I spent like 5 minutes doing this. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the series itself. I mentioned how I felt about the game in the series during the finale, but just a little more. I'm so glad that I did this because it was just a wild ride. Honestly, I can't even put it into words, not even yet. It's kind of a thing where like it has to sit and soak in for me. But I don't want to sit here and talk about this series a whole lot because, hey, this is the end of it. This is where we're supposed to be like, hey, we're at the end. We can do all this cool stuff now. Now, about that, is this the end for my Let's Playing stuff? Hell no, of course not. This is not even the first game that I actually plan to do as an LP series, which... yes, of course, as I just said, I'm planning more LP series. I promised the updates would be more frequent. Now that I actually have a schedule with like work and stuff, it's a lot easier to fit in. And the next game is actually the one that I plan to do first. And it is going to be some story time indeed. It is going to be a whole lot of story time. It's going to be a real fun time. I was kind of unsure if I actually want to do it. Even in like the past week, I was kind of going back and forth. Do I want to maybe do something else instead? But no, the story time makes it worth it. And it's such an important part of... it's more the fact that it didn't happen was such an important part to me. So But I can blab on and on that series. That game doesn't have full voice acting. There's your one hint for what it is. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to talk during it. But yeah, I would like to personally give the most heartfelt thanks of all time to anybody that stuck with me through this. I'm so sorry for all the delays in this series. I hope that you had a fun time. Again, I'm going to reiterate this from the finale. I hope that maybe if you didn't know about this game, maybe you gave it a shot. Maybe it's your new favorite. Maybe you just liked it. Who knows? Maybe you hated it. If you did, well, as they told you in the game, at least you bought it. Oh, that's one of my favorite lines from this game. But yes, that's going to be all for me. I doubt that we'll ever return to the Bloodlines realm, at least for the first game. While I was actually LPing this game, a sequel to this game, well, okay, I guess not a sequel, another game in the series, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, was announced. And it is still set for release this year, so keeping our fingers crossed. Maybe it can live up to the, honestly, kind of high bar that this game sets, despite everything with this game. This is definitely a game that's, despite everything about it, it's still good. But also because of everything about it, it's still good. Those two things don't really make sense combined together, but I have no idea how long this is going on for. I'm just kind of blabbing on because I'm actually... Oh, okay, I can look at Audacity. It's been going on for 26 minutes of me blabbing about this. So I think it's about time for me to leave you there. Again, heartfelt thanks to everybody that watched, everybody that supported this, everybody that subscribed, everybody that commented, everybody who even looked at the random tweets that I made about me updating this series. I'm sure you're real annoyed about it by the end, but, you know, I mostly did this for me, and if you enjoyed it along the way, well, that was just a bonus. But again, there's gonna be more from me down the line, so this is not it. I have no idea what point the montage of me trying to fit the severed head through the hoop is, but I sure hope it happened by this point, because I'm going to leave you all on that. Thank you all for watching, and I will absolutely see you next time with open arms and an open heart. See you all next time.